Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. We're very honored to have a very dear guest, Ustadh Feraidoon Mojadedi from Zaytuna College. A hadith came to my mind to introduce him over my interactions and the way I benefit from him. It's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and perhaps it's something that reminded me of Ustadh Feraidoon, but all us believers can aspire towards it, and it can also show us the benefits of poetry. So I'll just begin with this hadith, as the saying goes, سيد كلام البشر كلام سيد البشر والذي نفس محمد بيده إن مثل المؤمن كمثل النحلة أكلت طيبا ووضعت طيبا ووقعت فلم تكسر ولم تفسد. By the one in whose hand is the soul of the Prophet ﷺ, the example of the believer is like the example of the bee. It eats what's pure and good, tayyib, and it produces what's pure and good, tayyib. And when it lands on something, it does not break it, the flower, nor does it spoil it. And this was from the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Some people have known of, and also many of our great contemporary scholars have deemed it sahih. So what I really benefited from you, Ustadh Feraidoon, was your be like a bee, collecting some of the best of what our Tasawwuf Farsi literature and our civilization had as present to me. We're also honored to have Dr. Mahsheed Ansari, and she'll just be sharing her insights from her PhD on Iqbal in your book, Nubuwat. And so welcome to both to this podcast.
Thank you for having
me. Just my first question, Ustadh Feraidoon. Now, I know over the past few days we've been spending good time. Many of us Afghans, and Muslims in the West, but particularly Afghans, we're not aware of the scholarly tradition of our countries. And particularly me, I used to think, okay, the only people we have as Afghans are mujahids who've passed away. Can you just tell us a bit about your interactions and the people you've met, the scholars you've met, other than yourself, and the scholarly tradition of Herat and Afghanistan in general?
Alhamdulillah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Sallallahu ta'ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We have a rich tradition, especially from where we come from. Afghanistan was a center of learning. Herat was one of the capital cities of learning of the world, like Baghdad and Sham and Balkh and Herat, and Damascus was another city. These are like what they call cities of knowledge, Granada. Where the tradition was knowledge. There's cities of music, there's cities of carpet weaving, and there's cities of business, and there's cities of sports, like the Roman Colosseum. There's every city in the world has a little secret and mysteries in that. Afghanistan, we had multiple cities that had those centers of knowledge. Balkh was one of them. Balkh was a center of knowledge even before Islam. And when Islam came in, many of those Buddhists, they became Muslim, and they brought into Islam their tradition, and we benefited from the knowledge because al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min. Prophet ﷺ said that wisdom is the lost treasure of the believer. Wherever he finds it, he has the right to that. So we don't discriminate between, this is a Hindu saying. We don't know. If there's wisdom in that, we take it. And that's why Kalila and Dimna, that book was commissioned by Persian king to send a group of people to find that book in India. They said, we heard that there is an incredible book in Sanskrit, and find it. It's a book of animal stories, but there's wisdom. And they found it, they translated it into Persian, and obviously from Persian back, translated it into other languages. And it's an incredible book of wisdom, and we use it, we benefit from it, right? And even Maulana Rumi uses stories from the Khalil and Damna in the Masnavi.
When was this authored?
This is over 2,000 years before Islam. So this is like an ancient book from India. So, but we had some of the greatest thinkers in the history of humanity, such as like Fakhruddin Razi, whose peers are like Socrates. Like, this is not an ordinary scholar. His tafsir is the highest level of tafsir. Like, you have to be really an alim to start reading the tafsir kabir, the Imam Fakhr Razi's tafsir. He was just an incredible theologian. His understanding of God I don't think that there's anyone compared to him in terms of just the sheer knowledge and understanding that he had about just the dhat and the sifat and the af'al of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people like that came, he died in 606, he's buried in Herat.
And you visited it?
I visited his grave, obviously, many times. Like when I go to Afghanistan, that's the first visit to his grave. We have Khaja Abdullah Ansari, the greatest spiritual master, who everyone in the history, including Ibn Arab, everybody, just name it, they took from him, because he died in 481. So he's one of the first generation of Hanbali Sufi master. But his tasawwuf is within the Sharia, and that's why it's so beautiful. And his books, his tafsir has been translated into Farsi, into English as well by Dr. Chirik. Many of his books have been translated into English as well. So, and he has books in Arabic and in Farsi, like Manazir Sa'irin, Sad Maidan. I have many. A lot of it is like shorter books, like articles and advices. The Council of Khaja Abdullah Ansari, his Munajat is incredible. Probably the best Munajat ever written in history of Persian or Arabic language. No one has wrote Munajat like Khaja Abdullah Ansari.
And he was a Hanbali. Living in the Seljuk time.
But the thing about these people was that tasawwuf, like what I think it's Junaid who said, that tasawwuf was a reality without a name, but now it's a name without reality. It was a reality that they lived by. It wasn't a show. One thing they ask is, what's Sufism? Tasawwuf is having no logos. That's Sufism. You don't have a logo on, people walk with logos on their shirts, just to show, okay, I'm wearing this brand. Tasawwuf is to become logoless. You don't have a logo.
And even today, it's not to wear a particular type of clothing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's all logo. Tasawwuf is all logos now.
Just
you can tell a person walks in, who's the sheikh, who's the tariqah, that has become, that it lost, There were people, one of the Sufis said that, there were people who were organized internally, but disheveled outwardly. Now they're organized outwardly, disheveled internally. So tasawwuf is the most beautiful thing that you can experience. It's beautiful.
Subhanallah, you said that organized externally, but disheveled internally.
But generally it should be the opposite.
That's the opposite. It's a scary thought.
It is.
Because in the Quran it describes hypocrites as وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَمْ تُعْجِبُكَ أَجْسَامُهُمْ.
Yes.
When you see them, their forms will will amaze you.
Yeah.
So their attention to outward
and that's
beauty
exactly
is
what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. But that doesn't mean that everyone is like that.
No.
There are a lot of people that are sincere, beautiful, amazing, incredible, even though their form might be a logo. But this is how it is. But generally speaking, that's has become the problem. In terms of the, if you look at all of those, if you start talking about just the ulama and awliya that we produced, Afghanistan produced, like Khaja Abdullah Ansari, Maulana Abdul Rahman al-Jami. I mean, Jami was just incredible. You have Ali bin Muwafaq. I mean, Ali bin Muwafaq is, you can't read a book of spirituality, he's not at the center of it, right? He's buried in Herat. So there's all of these incredible people, because knowledge was at the center of our teachings and learning. So, like, for example, in our house, every Thursday night, there was a gathering of poetry. So we would get into two teams. I was a little kid, I remember, I was probably like maybe 4 or something, that I remember like clearly from that age. My first memories is that one group would say, some of the brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts, like 5, 7, 8, 10 people there, 7, 8, 10 people here, and they will say a poem. We call it Sher Jangi, which it's more like mushaira, just saying poetry. So whatever that ends with, you started with that same poem, and it would go on till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just because there's so many poems everybody had it memorized, and proverbs. We had so many proverbs memorized, and proverbs are from poetry. Over 500 proverbs in Persian language, and is from the Gulistan alone. Mm-hmm. It's because Gulistan is quotable quote. It's like Shakespeare. Everything can be quoted.
Can you give us one or two proverbs when you say, give an example?
Any poem of Sadi, any page that you open, you would see that there's, I heard this somewhere. Where do you hear it? You heard it in a poem. From like Shahnameh, Tawana Buad, Harki Dana Buad. That's like, which in English is, they stole it from that. Yeah. That's where they got it. They got it from the Shahnameh. Knowledge is power. Yeah. That's what it means, But that's because they ask someone to summarize all of Shahnameh in one sentence. He said, Tawana Buad, Harki Dana Buad. That the essence of this book is knowledge is power. So there's our culture is filled with shinidan ke buad monand didan. When is hearing equivalent to seeing? These are all from poetry, right? So we had a culture like that,
and some of these even can be attributed to hadith.
Most of them are. گفت پیغمبر با آواز بلند با توکل زانوی اشتر ببند. It's a hadith, tie your camel, right? Yeah. But have trust in Allah. So, but they did this, I thought it was brilliant, so they can learn the religion without feeling a foreigner. Yeah. Like, okay, you're not going to learn Arabic, it's okay. Not everybody has to learn Arabic to be a Muslim. Like, if you want to become a scholar and alim, that's another story. But ordinary Muslim, a shepherd, but this is a poem in their own language that they can memorize. And they can benefit from it, and it's something that the Prophet ﷺ said, right? So they translated most of the ahadith made it into poetry. So our nation was filled with them, but the thing is that it's still there. We still have, and we might not have the caliber of Fakhruddin Razi or Mawlana Rumi or Abdurrahman al-Jami, or we might not, definitely those people you can't reproduce. It's just impossible. Even Fakhruddin Razi said, the amount of knowledge that I have, you need 4 lifetimes to get this. Allah put barakah in my time that I actually could do this. They had barakah in their time, and they started at a very young age, at age 3, 4 o'clock, they started memorizing and learning. So it's not that they started when they were in college, they're like, I'm inspired, I want to learn about my deen. No, by the time they were like 20 years old, they mastered all of the sciences and memorized all of the text, and they were ready to go to the higher education. But it's still, we have
you were a big Fakhruddin fan and I won't share it on this podcast, but when you shared me your email address.
Yeah, my email is still Fakhr Razi. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, his thing is that Fakhruddin Razi, you just have to, when you see greatness, it's like there's a big debate in America over like who's the greatest basketball player of all time. Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron James? The GOAT debate. I mean, if you don't respect both of them, you just don't know sports. You have to just salute. And that's how these were like the greatest theologians of their time. Okay, ranked him. There are 2 other people in the history with them. So in the top 3, you salute them. That's how I look at people like that.
But this culture of Sher Jangi, like poet competition in a family since you're that young, I guess
it kind of inspires you to.
It inspires you. You get brought up in that. No wonder why. That's why. But later on, many us Afghans who went to India and Pakistan, we have a similar culture, but it's not Sher Jangi. Antakshi came to my mind, where unfortunately it's
Bollywood songs.
Competition with Bollywood songs.
Yeah, and that one thing about Sher Jangi, with
so
the
you can
Sher
see the
Jangi in Afghanistan that we had, there was this little secret. You couldn't use any poem that is already a song.
Oh, wow.
So if somebody sang that poem, you can't use it.
Oh, that disqualifies me, because all I know is Ahmed Zai's
poems. Of course, So that was a secret, because everybody memorizes songs, but no. So they're forcing people to memorize poetry, not songs.
Yeah. So it feels like, it was a very natural part of life and the culture.
It was part of life, in everybody was in it. I remember, there's, they have like 4 memories from my dad. And one of the memories is that he was sitting in a garden with all his friends, and I was probably 3. And he asked me to come. He said, "Oh, my son." And then he said, "My son, he rhymes things." So they would say a word, and I would say another word that rhymed with it. So, and then he said somebody's name, and they were saying the people's name, and I used to rhyme it. I said, some, it was childish things. So-and-so, and I would say inside so-and-so. So-and-so inside this. So there was like kind of like a thing, look, he rhymes names with things. Most of the things didn't even make sense. But there was somebody who had a name that I rhymed it. I guess it was a foul word in Farsi. And everybody started laughing. And then one of the uncles says, can you say that again? We didn't hear it. They were talking about it. So I still remember that. I'm like, when I was became a teenager, I'm like, oh my God, what did I say? But the point was that there was, on Sundays of the week, I don't remember what day it would be, but I know Thursday night was like, because Friday was a holiday, that was they would get together, families, and it wasn't just our family, like a lot of the families, they would get together and they would do this poetry, this mushaira between the family. And then my dad would get together with his friends, based on what I heard from my mom and the family, because I was like 3 or something, 3.5, and my father passed away. But he used to get with his friend in the garden. They used to read poetry. So then I grew up. When I grew up, my dad had a library just like this. It was probably a little bit bigger than this. And most of the books were poetry. Like most of the books, like more than half were poetry. And there was other books on, religion and history and this and that. But you can see that his passion was really poetry. And so those things, you grew up in a household like that, you just the love of poetry, and there was no video games, there was no TV, those things didn't exist in our time, we were, and when we grew up, then war happened, you couldn't do anything.
The purity in the environment, there was the innocence in the culture.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of us have disconnected because of war, and not just Afghans, but Muslims everywhere, disconnect from our tradition. How can we navigate this? Like, this is why I think you were saying these books are poor now, because nobody sort of picks them up, or no one appreciates the depth of what we have or what we've lost. How can we sort of create, or do you think that we are able to recreate space, with reconnecting with the gems of our tradition?
Yeah, particularly like for this. Well, even you and I, we're like most of the young people can't read Farsi now. So
we've lost our identity.
In the West, and we tried reading a bit of Kimya Sadat. Just try your best at it. And I mean, you've got your cousin has those rhymed translations of the Masnawi.
I mean, there's a lot in English right now that you can actually, for people who don't have any Farsi, but the language is, man, like, one of the Americans said, mind is a terrible thing to waste. Language is a terrible thing to waste. Yeah. Like, you can't waste the language. And I think at a certain age, you realize the value of the language. And if people just put in, like 30 minutes a day for language, within a few years, they will be back fluent. Because most of the Afghans who came to America or Australia or UK, they still spoke Farsi with their grandmothers and their mothers, so they can carry a conversation. They know the words. Okay, they might struggle with the word. Okay, if you learn a word a day, you have 365 words in a year. That's all you need to get fluent, additional to the basic conversation that you have. So it doesn't take that much effort to relearn a language that you have in you. And then most of the people, I would say 95% of the people, they have access to people that they can speak fluent in Farsi. All of you have access to your dad that they can speak Farsi fluent. Dad, from now on, no English. We're just going to speak Farsi. Okay, you speak 10, 15 minutes a day, you'll pick up 2-3 words, you pick up a conversation, you get fluent, and then you read a page, read with someone who can read. Just say, I want to read Panch Kitab. Just start with Karima Bibakhshai Bar Halima. Okay, what does it mean? What is Karima? What is Bibakhshai? What is Hal? What is Ma? Okay, I got these words. Okay, Hastim. What is Hastim? What is Asir? What is Kaman? What is Hawa? Okay, there goes, like, you probably learn 2-3 new words, and you got the sentence structure. So, oh my God, this makes sense. It's beautiful. It's going to come and help me. And that's the nature of poetry, that it does come and help you. It's like sadaqah. Like when you give charity, another proverb in Farsi, "Tuni kimi kuni dar dajlandos, izid dar biyabonat dahadbos." When you do a good action, it's like throwing a cup of water into the ocean. But God brings that cup of water for you when you are dying of thirst in the middle of the desert. But at that point, it's like, oh, what am I doing? Then people say, oh, What is my $20 going to do help with this masjid? They're trying to raise $1 million. Well, just give the $20. But then that will come and help you at the time of need, right?
I think, like you're alluding to, it's just a matter of want.
Focus
It's just
and
wanting. I
want,
think
yeah.
these days with
It's-
ChatGPT, the amount of... I used to give excuses for the modern people, but they got busy lives, but you know what? Most people waste their time. I know it from
social
looking at myself.
media. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if someone really wanted to, even with Arabic, I think there's no excuse left. It's just a matter of do you want it or not. So if anyone really wants to learn their language with all the literature that's available,
Yeah. I remember I used to force myself to finish. My dad used to have his Afghan schools. In holidays, I used to force myself to read these Farsi little literature books.
I was in Pennsylvania, Dr. Muhammad Isa Wali.
Yeah.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a long life. I had a chance to do a few lines of Shams, Diwan al-Shams with him.
Shams, yeah.
He did a PhD, a convert, and then later on became very fluent in Farsi. You met many people like that. We're talking about other
he's
professors.
great. Yeah, I met him. He's great.
He would just say the poem with the beated, like with the rhyme. He would sometimes he would correct me because of the rhyme of the poem.
Yeah.
So I had a few
What is
lessons.
how you read it? There was a beautiful.
Mukhammas, Musaddas, and things like that.
Yeah. And then the style of reading is one of the great. He's a great Iranian commentator on poetry, and he said, 15 years I was struggling with this line of Rumi. I couldn't understand it. I went to everybody. I read all the commentaries, and it didn't make sense. But I knew there was something in there that I'm not getting it. So finally somebody said, "Oh, go to so and so." But I said, "He's not a scholar of really." He said, "No, just go to him. He's a true master." And he said, I went to him. I said, "I have a problem with this line," and I read it. He said, "You read it wrong." And he said he read the same exact poem, but it was just where he paused. And he said, "Boom, I got it." He didn't say a word. So you got it? He said, "Yeah."
So it's
I
the
left.
style of
It's how you
recitation that
read
changes
the
meaning.
thing.
Wow.
It changes the
That's very
meaning,
interesting.
right? So, for example, in the Nainoma, he said, قصه های عشق مجنون میکند, right?
Yes.
The stories of love. مجنون قصه عشق براتون میکنه. مجنون is the one who tells you the story of love.
Yeah.
But that's wrong reading from one group of expert of Rumi. قصه های عشق مجنون میکند.
Yeah, that's how.
Love is telling you the story of Majnun. Like that's what you want to know. What love is going to tell you. It's going to tell you the story of Layla Majnun.
Okay.
But if you pause, قصه های عشق, comma مجنون میکند. It's Majnun that's telling you the story of love. قصه های عشق مجنون میکند. It is love that's telling you the story of Majnun. It changes the whole meaning.
Wow,
And if you
that's
change that, the different reading, it changes the whole line, all the lines from Vishnavasne all the way to there. It changes the whole thing because it all becomes perspective. Is it love telling you the story or the lover telling you the story?
Yeah, that's really good. And that's one poem that I love, and I actually learned that one as the only one. But just
Well, you've said it in formal events. You recited it.
Could you give us a few couplets? Because for the audiences, the Beshnau is one of our classical of Maulana.
Yeah.
Well, he can't now because that's made into a song. He said anything that's been made into a song, you can't quote
They
it.
only did the first two lines, not the whole thing.
Okay, I just know the Noshna, the famous singer version.
I guess it just shows that how meaning can change. The other thing that just came to my mind is I was listening to Anne-Marie Chamel, who's passed away now. She's a great Orientalist scholar.
Amazing. One of my favorite people.
He had dealings with her, interactions with her. He invited her.
MashaAllah. Well, I'd love to learn. And I remember one of her interviews, she talks about a time in her life where she's going through a really pit hole. Like I think it's like World War II.
Yeah,
she's on a train somewhere. And she actually talks about Khwaja Abdullah Ansari's Munajat. And she opens up a slip and opens up her pocket. And it's a couplet from his Munajat and I've forgotten the couplet right now, but she was just saying that how that basically transported her. So I
didn't know that.
it's just completely changed her
Have you
state.
seen her grave stone on her grave?
She's got a couplet there on her.
It's the
saying
of Sayyidina Ali.
So she has this. She had this opening in Germany during World War II. She was in a basement, And she said Berlin was on fire. Like we were just in Jahannam. Like it was, you can't even imagine the word war and you being in Germany, right?
Yeah.
So she was there and she said, I opened the Munajat of Hajj Abdullah Ansari.
Yeah.
And he said, in the middle of this fire, Ansari built a rose garden in my heart.
Yeah.
And I was the only one in Berlin living in a rose garden, just reading. But she could read in Farsi at 18.
Yeah, she understood.
So she read that.
How
and
did
that
a
changed
German
her.
woman learn Farsi?
I mean, those people.
She knew Urdu, she knew Pashto. She was
At 18?
Yeah. There's most of these people, they have early start. They, gifted people, they don't waste time. They learn these things at the early age. There are a lot of people, polyglot, that are 16, 15 years old. They know 20 languages already.
Yeah.
And that's their gift, right? But she was just incredible woman, and she did the best books. People ask me on Rumi, I said, just read Anne-Marie Chamel and Dr. Chittick. And those are like, you don't need to read anything else, honestly.
But that story is such an analogy because Germany being the sort of seat of rational Western philosophy and thinking, Iqbal went there too,
Yeah.
Anne-Marie
I went
Chamel's
to his
story,
university.
Yeah.
I have a picture, Iqbal Strasse.
The street,
Is that, which city is it? It's in Heidelberg? No.
Yeah.
Heidelberg, my friend from Germany is there.
Because I did I did a presentation for a university Tübingen in Germany, and because it was Iqbal, a lot of people were just interested in the topic, but I was just interested in Chamel, and that analogy just, I mean, even though she's like within the best of what Western rational thought offers and philosophy, Germany, yet she's looking into Persian metaphysics. She's looking at the soul, Persian metaphysics, Khwaja Abdullah Ansari. And that to me is a really interesting analogy of how, like, as you said, there is a great offering that we can have, still that we have, a treasure that we need to preserve and be familiar with again ourselves.
I went to Macquarie Uni for my undergrad, and I never forget our pro-vice chancellor. She was in love with Iqbal. She goes, Iqbal is my favorite poet. And I mean, I knew Rumi perhaps, but I didn't think Iqbal had that much of a wide appeal. I think we just got stuck talking about the great scholars of the past, of Herat. You didn't even mention one of my favorite scholars, Mullah Ali-Qari. He's
Mullah
also
Ali-Qari, obviously.
Al-Hirawi. In Arabic, when you read Al-Hirawi,
they refer to him.
Hirawi means, it means from Herat.
Hirawi.
Yeah, so even Khwaja Abdullah Ansari is known as Khwaja Hirawi. Herat.
Now, I was reading, sorry to cut you, Ustad, Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah's book recently.
Yeah,
the
he
famous
told me,
student of Ibn Taymiyyah. And the way he refers to, and Dr. Uwaimi Ranjum has translated his book, the way he refers to Khwaja Abdullah Ansari as, guess which title? Shaykh al-Islam.
Yeah.
Really?
Shaykh al-Islam, like, okay, he's talking about Ibn Taymiyyah because he was there with him in prison when he passed away. But no, he's referring to as Khwaja Abdullah Ansari, and one of a close friend of mine said 14 sharh have been written on Sad Maidan.
Yeah, there's many shuruh written on that. But also, the titles were something that when it was given to somebody, nobody else was given that title anywhere in the Muslim world. So for that reason, out of honor, they never mention people's name. Like we never mention our grandfather's name. We don't mention them by name. We mention them by title. We give them honorific title to them. We mention them. We don't call our father by their names, right? And our mothers by their names. We say Mother John or Padar John or whatever we say, even our uncle. Nobody says their uncle, hey, Abdullah. We don't do that. It's disrespect. So one of the reasons why they give these titles to these great scholars, not everybody had it, but the great scholars, was not to be called by their name. It's disrespect to say, Abdullah Ansari, right? So everyone was a Shaykh al-Islam. So all of the book, if you read any books after the 5th century, reference to him, Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh al-Islam. When it was given that title, some of the people give to Ibn Taymiyyah, it was a lot of the scholars, they rejected that title, not because Ibn Taymiyyah wasn't a great man, a great scholar, and nobody's going to take that away from him, but it was like, hey, we have a Shaykh al-Islam. Like
from the Hanbali tradition.
It doesn't matter what about, but we have a Shaykh al-Islam that is unanimously accepted by everybody. The same with Imam Ghazali, Hujjat al-Islam. There's no other Hujjat al-Islam in the history of Islam that nobody that they said is a proof of Islam. He got that title until Ayatollah Khomeini came in, right? And then everybody was a Hujjatul Islam in Iran, right? Hujjatul Islam, Hujjatul Islam, so and so. But it's even people laughed at it. It's like, well, how many Hujjatul Islam do we have? But when the books are written and they say Hujjatul Islam, it's out of honor. That they don't say, oh, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali said this.
Or Mojadedi
exactly. Imam Rabbani. Everybody say Imam Rabbani. Mujaddid al-Thani. They don't say Ahmad Sarhindi, it's just like, it's disrespectful. So those are the titles. But, great scholars, but then it's a tradition. We carry the living tradition of the dead. That's our minhaj, is the living tradition of the dead, not the dead tradition of the living. So that is the secret of our tradition. So we still practice Abdullah al-Ansari, tasawwuf. We still follow the creed in the theology of Fakhruddin al-Razi. We still do the grammar of Mullah Jami, right? We still do the poetry of Sa'di in Hafiz, in Maulana Rumi, in Iqbal. Iqbal is a proof that this chain will continue until the end of time. This is a fire that cannot be extinguished, because this is the fire that kindled the hearts of every human being. And most of us, Maulana says that there's a beautiful story of a fire worshipper, a Magian, a Gabr, at the time of Bayezid Bustami. بود گبر در زمان بایزید گفت او را یک مسلمان سعید که چی باشد گر تو اسلام آوری تا بیابی صد نجات و سروری. So this Muslim murid goes to this kafir, and he says, hey, why don't you become Muslim? The Muslim guy is a sanguine character. He's very happy. He's like, once you become Muslim, you'll be saved. You'll achieve salvation if you become Muslim. گفت این اسلام اگر هست ای مرید آن که دارد شیخ عالم بایزید من ندارم طاقت آن تاب آن کان فزون آمد ز کوشش های جان. He said, if this Islam you're talking about is the Islam of Bayezid Bustami, I'm sorry, I can't handle that. It's too much. It's too much. The light is too strong for me. I can't carry that light. It's incredible. My heart is with that light. But I can't do it. I can't take it. But if this Islam is the Islam you're practicing, I have no interest in it. I have no interest in your Islam to practice it. His Islam is too much. Your Islam, I can't practice that. I have no interest, and my heart doesn't incline towards you. And then Rumi says, عشق او زاورد ایمان بفسرد چون به ایمان شما او بنگرد. He said, he comes with a burning heart, filled with the fire of Islam, loving that I want to become a Muslim. But when he sees you, you freeze him like ice cold. That's your Islam. And that is what these people brought. They brought that flame, the warmth of the religion. Yeah. And then we have a generation of just freezers. No. They freeze people. They make them so cold that they would never even think about it.
What gives one this fire? So what is it in the lives of these great mystics and poets that we have? Is it, I think earlier in our discussion...
So all of them in the first line of the Masnavi, the whole solution is in the first line. When Maulana Rumi says, Bishnav az ney, chun hikayat mikonad, از جدایی ها شکایت می کند. Everything is in the first line. The whole Masnavi is in that line. So, first of all, Rumi doesn't say, listen to me. It would have been perfect to say, بشنو از من چون حکایت می کنم از جدایی ها شکایت می کنم. Perfect. No problem with that line. As good as the other one, or even better. But we know he's talking about himself. But he's referring to a nay. There's many reasons. One is humility. Just listen to the nay. Second is, I'm going to die and I'm going to go. But there always will be nay. You can become the nay. You can become the nay. And I'm going to give you the formula for the nay. How to become this flute, this insan al-kamil. So the first thing that the nay, you have to remove all of the attachment. That's the first thing. That's what they ask Abdul Qadir Bedil. How did the nay reach such a station? That Rumi is talking about. Everybody, nay, 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 right? How did it reach such a high station? He said, as tark barg, nay ba maqam nawa rasid. It was the abandonment of the leaves, attachment of, oh, it's me. You know who I am? I'm this. I'm Ustadh. I'm a sheikh. I'm an author. I'm a writer. I'm a master. I'm a PhD. I'm a doctor. These me, I. These are all attachment. All of them are attachment. So the nay, the first thing it does, all of its beauty, which is all the leaves and the flowers, they all get chopped off, out. And that's what, when the Qalandariya movement came in, the first thing they did the cut, shave the hair, shave the beard, shave the mustache, shave the eyebrows, because they said these are all attachment and beauty. We want it out. I mean, that's an extreme group, but there was, in that form, there was a meaning that they were searching for. That we don't want any attachment. We want to become like the nay. And then the second stage is the polishing of this nay. Now you got rid of the attachment, but it's not enough, because if you put your hand, you might get cut and get, you hurt people with the nay. So they polish it, right? Keep polishing and keep polishing, keep polishing.
And then tahliya.
So that is the smoothness of the nay. That is your sharia. That's the learning of your deen. And this is why there's stations in our religion. People that are not, they're asking, oh brother, how am I going to join a Sufi order and do this? And I said, do you know the faraid of wudu? If you don't know how to make wudu, like, what are you talking about? This is a nay, it starts from the outside. You have to polish it. And that polishing is irritating, right? Gar bahar zakhmi tu pur ki nashavi, pas kujo bi sayqal ayine shavi. And if you get irritated with every rub, how do you expect to be polished? So you just keep doing that. But if you don't do it, then God will send somebody else to rub you the wrong way and polishes you. And that's where suffering comes in. Suffering is the polishing that you didn't do. God is sending somebody else to polish you in a harsh way, because you didn't do it the gentle way. So you're just doing it. Say ghali kun, say ghali kun, say ghali. Keep polishing, keep polishing, keep polishing. That's the secret of life, right? It's it's Karate Kid, the first one.
Yeah.
Daniel's son, wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. He do it, and finally he gets fed up with it, right? He's like, it doesn't make sense. When am I going to learn how to fight? And then he throws the punch and wax on. He realized, okay, that's all I needed to do. I need to do Sayghali. And we need to continue doing that. So that's once it's smooth, you're still not a flute.
Yeah.
You need to polish the inside out. So you have to empty it out. So now you're taking out. And that's where books like Purification of the Heart, Panch Kitab, they come in to our tradition, how to remove kibr from your heart, how to remove envy and hasad, all of those from the heart, and empty everything out. So you empty everything out and it becomes hollow. But it's still, there's no sound. You need the holes. And those holes are drilled into you with the experience of life. And keep drilling and drilling and drilling. But you have to be patient, right? You have to be patient. And this is why even in the process of learning, Imam Shafi said, "Isbar ala murri al-jafa min mu'allimin, fa inna rasub al-ilmi fi nafaratihi. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَذُقْ مُرَّ التَّعَلُّمِ سَاعَةً تَجَرَّعَ ظُلَّ الْجَهْلِ طُولَ حَيَاتِهِ." Be patient with the bitterness of your teacher. Because they see a spark in you, they want to take it out. They're rough on you because they see something potential in you. They see the rose and the thorn. They want to take it out, right? But if you don't, you're going to be just suffering from ignorance all your life, right? Yeah. And the Gulistan, he has the story about the minister, the king. Padshahi Pasar Maktab Ferestad, there's this beautiful story that the king sent, a minister or king sent his son to the school, and then he gives him a loh simin bar kenarish nehad. So he gives him a loh, a tablet, the wooden tablet, but he made it out of silver because he's rich. Barsar loh una vishtabazar. So he wrote on top of the loh in gold ink this line. So this is what Saadi is saying, that I'm giving you guys something incredible because it's a silver platter with gold ink. So this is incredible. Just pay attention to what did this father write for the son to go to the madrasa for the first day to start studying. And he wrote, Jawra Ma'lim behza mehr padar. The bitterness of your teacher is better than the kindness of your father. Because that
Jawra Ma'lim.
Jawra Ma'lim,
The tyranny of the teacher.
Yeah.
The tyranny.
Yeah. Or
the tough, right?
Yeah, the toughness.
The same thing as Imam Shafi.
Yeah.
Is,
Yeah, it's the same similar concept,
Yeah,
but the
wow.
point is that there are going to be teachers are going to be bitter. They're going to be, they're not going to be sweet.
Yeah.
That's the suffering that brings things out of you, right?
Yeah.
So that's the polishing of the inside, and then the holes. Once you have that, you play a song. Then you put the nay in the song. But the song doesn't give you the standing ovation. You get the clap. Very nice song, good song. But that song, when that song becomes like, oh my God, everybody quiet, I want to listen. This is incredible. Like, when do you become like that? آتش عشق است کاندر نی فتاد. Is when the flame of love falls into it, after you have the cleanness of the inside, the polishing of the outside, and the holes, then a fire of love falls into it. That's when you speak. It's like heaven. That's the standing. That's Mozart. That's Beethoven. That's you get this. That's the concert for the Afghans. That's the Amazahir. Like it's like you listen. You like, people shed tears just listening to those lines because it's sang from the heart, right? So those are the type of that's the secret that they had. So everything is in there. So you have to become the nay.
Yeah.
Once you become the nay, so that nay, in every generation you will have nay. In every generation, Allah does not. It's unfair not to have the nay, right? So you have the prophets. After the prophets, you have the righteous, the salihin, the ulama, the mufassir, the muhaddis, people of inspired. Like Iqbal was one of those nays of past century. And that nay is echoing. The sound of his nay is echoing. It's going to echo until the end of time. Rumi was a nay, and it's echoing still. But it continues, and it's an opportunity for us to see we can become the nay. Our children can become the nay. So providing that opportunity, but they have to go through those stages.
Could you just, there's earlier in the other room, you were, sorry if you had questions, but just when you said Iqbal, like you had a very good anecdote of his life, and he had almost like a internal crisis of faith, and it's almost like every scholar has to go through this type of spiritual suffering. And then, Iqbal, one of his great outputs is this concept of khudi, and that's really celebrated not just in the Persian world, like even in Iran they distribute that. But this khudi, this selfhood, and I think maybe that's a sort of realization of him spiritually, thinking that yes, this Western philosophy, it's great, it's exciting, it's wonderful, but then when he goes back to Maulana, as you said, Rumi, and that he really finds he's come back to home, and then he's sort of talking about khudi, like selfhood, like reconstructing himself, but also the nation in this khudi. Like, what are your thoughts on that in relation to how the Muslim world, we can find ourselves, just as Iqbal was kind of projecting?
Yeah, well, the thing is that, Iqbal was confused because most of the stuff that our children learn at university is confusing. Very few people, like yourself and Sadeq John and a few people here and there, they actually go through the system and they come out still their deen intact. Very few people. Majority of the people, philosophy 101, they lost their deen. Just the first day.
It was the hard.
No, first day.
Sometimes psychology as well.
Psychology, because those people were so clever when they wrote those books. They were clever. They were not like dumb people. You can't say Freud was stupid. He was clever. I don't consider people like that intelligent. I consider them clever. And
Sherlock, smart.
It's a different level of intelligence, cleverness, and that's what Rumi said. Yesterday I was clever. I want to change the world, right? Now I'm wise. I want to change myself. So wisdom and intellect is different. And Ghazali said you can't call an atheist intelligent. You can call them clever. We can't call them intelligent. Because intelligent leads to God. If you're intelligent, you should see the hand of providence in everything. You can't be like, ma khalaqta hadha batila. This is, it can't be just in vain and just popped up into existence. That's not intelligent. That's cleverness, right? But not intelligent. So Iqbal was really, he went under this, he lost himself in Nietzsche. I mean, I don't recommend people reading Nietzsche unless they have good grounding, or Thomas Arnold and these fellows. There's wisdom in it, no doubt. There's a lot of pieces you can use, but the foundation of their teachings is to take God away from your heart. That's it. They won't take God away from heart. God is dead. That's their premise of their writing, right? And we kill him. That's, and then he dies and God is still alive. So this is the stupidest thing to say, right? I think, therefore I am. What does that even mean? It should be, well, Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi Hafidhullah said, he said, the correct way, the correct answer to that is, I think, therefore he is. That's the correct answer. If you can think, the first thing you see, Allahu Akbar. This Allah created me. There's a God. And then there was not a time that people had an understanding that there's no God. The issue has always been, is there one God? The unity of God. Not that there is a God. If you ask an Aboriginal people, everybody, I don't care. They call it, the men above. Oh, there's a man above. Whatever they want to call it. But there's a concept of a higher being that created the heavens and earth, right? But that understanding of one God, like the unity of God, the Christian, they have the Trinity problem, and the Zoroastrian, they have the dualism problem. Yeah. So they all have this. It was the oneness of God that the Muslims actually dealt with. There's no books written traditionally that, okay, let's prove that there's a God. It's self-evidence. Aftab ayat dalil aftab. Rumi said the sun is the proof for the sun. What are you going to prove? Like it's just so beyond me when I see atheists. I laugh, even at the intelligent one. Internally I laugh, just like, are you serious? Like, and then whatever they say, they actually, they are contradicting themselves at every moment.
I heard a saying, he's hidden batin in the intensity of his manifestation.
Yeah.
But that's really nice. I think therefore he is, because the fact that matter can think and gain consciousness is actually a sign that there's a creator, whereas the existence of the actual self is a bit questionable anyway.
Yes.
I mean,
so that's a really, the athar of the creation should turn you to Allah.
Yeah, exactly.
Take you back to Him.
Everything. I mean, you can. I mean, the whole Masnavi is kind of like teaching you, like, but it's al-qurb hijab. The closeness is a hijab. That's why, like, can you see your eye? Can you see the eye, the lid right here? You can't. Why? Because it's so close. And Allah is closer to you than your own consciousness. And that's why we can't, it's like, okay, we don't see him because it's too close. That's why you don't see it. But Hafiz said, Chi bahana bashad an ra ki to ra nadide bashad. He said, on the day of judgment, I wonder what would be the excuse of the person who would say, oh God, I didn't see you. Because his manifestation is everywhere and everything. And Chishti Rahmatullah alayhi said, Bahar chi mi nigaram, juz khuda nemi bina. And everything that I look, I see. I don't see anything other than God. Sifat zat, chu az ham juda nemi bina. It's like everything is one, like the sifat and the zat. Like how do you not see it? Magu ke dide hadis qadim kay binat. Don't tell me my eyes are hard that it doesn't see qadim. Hamin basas ke man khish ra namibina. Isn't it enough as a proof that I cannot see my own self? Yeah. If Allah wants, He can hide you from yourself. Like the eyes can't see themselves. But they can see everything. But they can't see themselves.
Maybe that's a beautiful ending. I wanted to speak a bit about also current ulama and the madaris, but
There's so much to
maybe
speak about.
you
We have
best,
to do part
Sydney,
two.
if we do a part 2 or something, we'll speak
Part two,
about it,
inshallah.
inshallah.
We could try it online as well. We
Yeah,
could try
yeah.
doing with Ustadh Feraidoon.
But this
Yeah,
is
no,
really-
alhamdulillah. I think that also, just to close, that tradition, what I was talking about, is a living tradition, a chain of narration that has been passing down, and the people have been carrying that torch.
Yeah.
And we have people like Allama Saljuqi, rahimahullah, last century, incredible books he left behind on Naqd Bedil, and on, he had a book on Laqad Karramna Bani Adam. It's incredible books he left behind. And if you read his book on the signs of God on the horizon, you think that it was written by a scientist from PhD from Stanford in 2024. Like, how much did he know about science alone that he connects all of these? So incredible. And, his, Aghay Saljuqi, who's in Virginia, translated the In the Shade of the Quran into Farsi, wrote quite a few books, incredible scholar. Dr. Arshad Irshad, one of my teachers, he translated the Quran into Farsi. The first time it's been translated.
And you helped with that translation, right?
Alhamdulillah, I had the honor of editing the Farsi translation of Juz al-Baqarah. Big, huge honor for me, and the honor of having it project managed it and published it in Turkey.
And also the purification of the heart.
It's really beautiful what he did. And then we translated, and I was part of the editing of that book as well, Purification of the Heart into Farsi. But there are, like Dr. Saib Danishwar, who's really, I call him a scholar's scholar. Like, he's really a person that the ulama can sit with him and learn from him. Incredible, gifted, just genius, man, mashallah, on any subject. I mean, you can study with him philosophy, you can study with him grammar, you can study Farsi grammar, Arabic grammar, you can study with him aqidah, you can study with him logic, you can study with him history, you can study with him seerah, you can study any hadith, just open it and just go ahead and read. And he will just comment on them. So it's just incredible.
You've got a copy of a commentary of the Burda Sharif.
Yeah, and then Abdul Qadir Shahab, who died a few years ago in California, and they transport his body to Afghanistan, buried next to his father. One of the most incredible human being and scholar I've met within the Afghan community. He did a commentary on the Burda. He wrote many other books as well, but his commentary on the Burda is unique. Like, it's super unique, and in terms of, he did grammatical, break it down the grammatical way in Arabic grammar in Farsi, and then he also did all the miracles and the benefits of each line. What is it? At what time you read this? What's the benefit of this? And it's just very unique. His sharh on it is incredible.
You've promised me a copy when I come.
Yeah, I have an extra copy for you.
I'm saying this on the podcast as a proof.
Yeah, I have a copy for you. So there are many people. We are not in Herat, Afghanistan. Wali Shah Bahra, one of my teachers, I benefited immensely from him. I only spent about 7 days with him when I went to Afghanistan a few years ago, but that was like 7 years. It's like people, there's Goldsmith.
Is he the person you called the Sheikh Hamza Yusuf of Afghanistan?
He's like, he reminds me, like, when he talks, his knowledge is so vast that he can give a talk on anything, and then he brings Bedel, Saadi, Maulana, Sheikh Ahmed Sarhindi, from Tasawwuf to Fiqh to Ghazali. My God, he's just like, mashallah. And he's young, he's younger than me, and he's just so well versed in language as well. His father was Aghay Bahra, was given the Allama title by Zahir Shah. I actually saw the actual plaque that he gave him with the medal in the Zahir Shah's, King Zahir Shah's signature on it. Him and Saljuqi were the two Allama of the last century in Herat. So his son, mashallah. So there are people, my point is that there are people who are carrying the torch.
The heroes, mashallah. I really
we have to support.
But they seem to go to America. They don't come to Sydney, Australia, the Afghans.
Also, Aghay Hilaman Ghaznavi, who's in Fremont now from Afghanistan, he's a very beautiful man, a man of akhlaq, character, and a man of humility. That's one thing that you would see, that real tasawwuf has humility. And if they don't have humility, they're not Sufis.
What did you say last night? Thing says, Khwaja Abdullah, التصوف كله أدب.
كله adab, yeah. Tasawwuf is the, I mean, the thing is that adab is the prerequisite of knowledge.
That's why they call it adabiyat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Literature.
And then knowledge, without knowledge, is like you can't find your way. Knowledge, al-ilm nur. Knowledge is light that illuminates the path, right? And that's why Rumi, when he says, قمر جان صفت در ره دل پیدا شد در ره دل چی لطیف است سفر هیچ مگو. That an illuminating moon appeared inside of me when I went internally. That means knowledge. It's ilm. The moon is there. Everybody's got their moon, but it's covered with a cloud of ignorance and sin and darknesses. So once it illuminates, everything disperses, and then you would see the path. And that's what knowledge is. Knowledge is a light that illuminates your path, and everything will be. So there are people who are actually carrying that tradition in Afghanistan, in America, all over the world. And our young people need to see that we have a tradition. And the problem, our biggest problem is the language, that they can't listen to these people to benefit from it because their language is not Farsi. But we need see, the problem is that we always want everybody. We just need a small group. We need 5 people from Sydney to say, you know what, I'm going to teach my children Farsi. I'm going to make them incredible. I'm going to make them memorize a poem a week. In 10 years, they have,
If I bring you 5 people from Sydney, what can you do with them? To San Francisco.
First of all, I have to teach them English because I don't understand your accent, man.
You don't like the Aussie accent.
No, I think all joking aside, I think that if you have 5 people from Sydney, the result in about 10, 15 years, that those 5 people, each one of them will inspire 50
They don't have to be Afghan.
people.
They
will
can
inspire
Farsi,
50 people.
Yeah.
And that the 50 people inspired 500 people. 500. So it's you start with a small group. You can't do like, everybody learn Farsi. Okay, they learn Farsi. What? But no, some people say, you know what, we want you to go all the way to the top. All the way to the top.
Serious.
But it has to start at a young age. I would say age 3. You let them memorize poetry. By the time they're like 7, they should.
Multilingual, it makes it difficult.
Freud said, Freud said that at age 5, you can learn 7 languages at the same time, without any confusion in your brain. So you can, it's proven, And I think a lot of people, I tell them, if the mother speaks Farsi, the father speaks Pashto, I said, speak Farsi and Pashto. Let them learn both languages. They can. Easily they can learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if there's, my cousin, like his wife is Turkish, said, let the wife speak in Turkish, you speak in Farsi. They will learn English anyways, But then continue. Don't stop when they go to school and then speak English. They forget the language.
That's a good motivation for the future.
Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, I think when I said a second podcast, you quickly went and listed all the scholars.
I did all of them, yeah. We're done.
Okay, thank you very much. It's an honor to have you at this Isra podcast.
Thank you.
Inshallah,
I'm blessed to be with you guys and very proud of you and our sister Mahsheed.
We are very proud to have someone like a role model, Afghan, connected to the ulama, connected to Sheikh Hamza,
doing a lot of
being
good
part
work.
of such a
May Allah accept your service coming to Sydney and reviving our spirits, our souls with the
Allah
Nur
bless
of,
you. Thank you. It's a good opinion. And we're very proud, and I'd love to read your dissertation on Allama Iqbal, one of my favorite of the poets, and Sayyid Nursi. I don't know much about him. I have one of his book in Farsi. One of my Turkish shuyukh gave me. It's in translated in Farsi. There's a lot of wisdom. I read it.
I was going to ask you about Sayyid Nursi. He's written a book called the Masnawi.
Yeah.
Masnawi Nuriya, but it's not poetry.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that he's picked that name for his book. I was going to...
He refers to him as one of his Ustadh. Imam Rabbani, Ibn Arabi, Maulana Rumi.
And Sarhindi as well, because I think he follows Sarhindi's...
All right, so Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much.